Let's be honest, nothing stings more than showing up for someone who barely notices. You wake up and one of the first things you think about is her. You craft thoughtful messages, you check in, you ask about her day. You make plans, offer your time, and show her in every subtle way that you're genuinely interested. But what do you get in return? A delayed reply. A dry hello. A last-minute excuse why she can't meet up. She's never fully present, always just out of reach, and you're left wondering what you're doing wrong. Here's the truth. The more available you are, the more she feels like she doesn't have to try. Your effort becomes expected, not appreciated. The pattern is familiar. You're consistent, dependable, the guy who's always there. But somewhere along the line, that reliability starts to feel like background noise. It's not that you're not valuable, it's that she's grown used to your presence. There's no mystery, no tension, no space for her to miss you. You're always one text away, and that convenience dulls the spark. Then one day you stop. Not because you're angry, but because you're exhausted. You start putting that attention back into yourself. You stop checking in. You're not so available anymore. And something strange happens. She starts noticing. She watches your stories. She asks what you've been up to. Suddenly, there's curiosity where there used to be indifference. It's not magic. It's energy. People feel when you pull back, and often, that's the only time they start questioning what they lost. When you were always there, she didn't have to wonder. But now that you're not, she finally realizes your presence had weight. That's the shift. When consistency meets distance and attention turns into respect. Not everything that's freely given is truly valued. That includes your time, your energy, and especially your attention. In the beginning, you thought being consistent and always available would show her how serious you were. So you reached out first. You followed up when she didn't reply. You adjusted your schedule just to match hers. You made it easy for her to access your presence, hoping she'd appreciate the effort. But the more you gave, the less it seemed to mean. That's not a flaw in your effort, it's human nature. When something comes without effort, people assume it'll always be there. And when there's no challenge, no sense of earning, there's no emotional investment. You became familiar, predictable. And no matter how genuine your intentions were, the value of your presence started to fade in her eyes. Not because you weren't worth it, but because you never made her feel like she had to earn it. The hardest truth to accept is that sometimes, giving too much too soon removes the need for someone to reciprocate. You created all the momentum while she just coasted on it. And without any effort on her end, she began to take it for granted. That's why pulling back isn't playing games, it's rebalancing the scale. It's about making your time and attention something she has to match, not just receive. When you shift your focus from chasing her to centering yourself, you naturally become more selective. You no longer hand out your energy to someone who's not showing up equally. And that's when your presence becomes powerful again. Not because you changed who you are, but because you remembered your worth. Let her experience what life feels like without your constant effort. Only then will she recognize what she had access to. You don't always need to say something to be heard. Sometimes, it's your silence that speaks the loudest. When you're constantly present, constantly initiating, constantly making space for someone in your life, they begin to tune you out, not out of malice but out of comfort. You've become predictable, and while that sounds like a good thing, it often isn't. Predictability, when not balanced with value, fades into the background. You become that steady hum, always there, always accessible, and rarely noticed. But then you go quiet. You don't send the usual message. You don't check in. You start focusing on your day, your goals, your peace. At first it might feel strange. You'll wonder if she notices, if she even cares. But over time, that silence does something your words never could. It creates space for reflection. When someone's used to you being around and suddenly you're not, the absence leaves a gap. That gap starts to echo. It brings questions. Where is he? Why hasn't he messaged? Did I lose him? That's where clarity lives. Not in the noise of constant communication, but in the quiet that follows distance. She starts to replay your past conversations, your moments together, the little things you used to say. All the effort you made, which she once overlooked, begins to stand out now that it's no longer there. And this isn't about manipulation. It's about realization. Silence isn't revenge, it's a mirror. It reflects the truth back to both of you. If she truly valued you, the silence will wake her up. If she didn't, it will free you from wasting any more of your time. Either way, you win. Because in silence, there is no pretending. Only honesty remains. And the truth always surfaces when the noise stops. There comes a point where chasing someone starts to feel less like love and more like losing yourself. You wake up thinking about her, plan your day around her availability, and let her responses, or lack of them, dictate your mood. You've made her the center of your world, but in doing so, you've shrunk your own. All that energy, all that focus, all that mental space, you've been pouring it outward. And the returns? Inconsistent at best. But imagine if you redirected that same energy inward. Imagine if you started treating yourself like the priority instead of constantly trying to prove your worth to someone who hasn't matched it. The gym becomes more than a routine. It becomes a promise to yourself. Your goals become sharper. Your focus stronger. Your growth becomes visible, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. You stop waiting around for her replies because your time starts to feel full again, with purpose, not just distraction. When you stop orbiting around someone else and start building your own universe, everything changes. You walk differently. You speak with more conviction. Your standards rise, not out of arrogance but out of self-respect. And people feel that. It's not loud. It's not showy. It's just a quiet confidence that says, I'm good with or without you. Ironically, this is when she might start paying attention. When you stop reaching, when you stop trying to prove yourself, when you're too focused on your own progress to notice. Whether she's watching, that's when she starts to feel the shift. People are naturally drawn to growth because it's rare. Most stay stagnant. Most repeat the same patterns. But not you. You chose yourself. And that choice is what makes you magnetic, not just to her, but to the world. There's a difference between showing interest and overwhelming someone with your presence. When you constantly reach out, constantly check in, and constantly fill the silence, you leave no room for mystery, no space for desire to build. Every time she opens her phone, there you are. Another message, another question, another reminder that you're waiting on her. And while your intentions may be genuine, the effect can be the opposite of what you want. She doesn't have to think about you because you never leave her thoughts empty enough for your absence to be felt. But when you stop trying to fill every moment, something different happens. You send a message, maybe one that carries thought or intention, and then you go live your life. Not out of strategy, but because you're finally prioritizing your own time. You spend time with your friends, focus on your work, take care of your mind and body. And in that space, a shift occurs. She's scrolling through her phone and pauses. You haven't messaged today. You're not flooding her inbox. Suddenly, you're not predictable anymore. That space makes her wonder. Curiosity doesn't grow in crowded places. It grows in silence. It grows in the in-between. The less she hears from you, the more she has to think about you on her own. And when someone chooses to think about you instead of being constantly reminded of you, the connection feels different. It feels earned. It feels intriguing. You don't build desire by overwhelming someone. You build it by being intentional and then stepping back. That space you once feared is not your enemy. It's your ally. It creates contrast. And contrast is what makes presence powerful. When you stop trying to constantly be there, she finally gets the chance to miss you. There's a quiet strength in knowing what you will and won't accept. Too often guys ignore that line. They'll tolerate mixed signals, disrespect, and being treated like a backup option, all for the hope that things might eventually change. They let their standards slide because they're afraid that if they speak up or walk away, she'll leave for good. But what gets overlooked in that fear is this. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you teach her how to treat you. Not with words, but with your actions. If she cancels last minute and you still chase, if she replies after days and you respond immediately, if she disappears when it suits her and you welcome her back like nothing happened, what message are you really sending? That your time is negotiable. That your presence doesn't need to be earned. That no matter how she shows up, you'll still be there. And once that message is clear, respect starts to fade. Not because you aren't worth it, but because you haven't made her work to see it. Setting boundaries isn't about building walls or playing games. It's about making it clear that you know your value. That you're not desperate for connection, You're intentional with it. When you calmly show someone that certain behavior isn't acceptable, you don't lose power, you gain it. You show her that your attention is meaningful, that it's not something just anyone gets to have access to without effort. Some people will walk away when you start holding boundaries. Let them. Because the ones who stay, the ones who step up, are the ones who respect the line you've drawn. And in that respect, real connection can finally grow. Boundaries aren't rejection. They're self-respect in action. And nothing builds attraction more than that. Sometimes, the most revealing thing you can do is nothing at all. You've talked, you've explained, you've shown interest, and you've done your part. But when the energy isn't returned, when the effort isn't matched, there comes a moment when silence becomes your most honest move. It's not about giving the cold shoulder or playing hard to get. It's about finally giving space to see what's real. Because when you stop initiating, stop checking in, and stop holding the connection together on your own, you allow the truth to rise to the surface. If she cares, she'll notice. If she values you, she'll respond. But if she stays silent too, then that tells you everything you need to know. No second guessing. No overanalyzing. Her reaction, or lack of it, becomes your answer. It might sting at first, especially if you had high hopes or strong feelings. But silence has a way of stripping away illusions and showing you what's genuine. And if she does reach out, if she begins to ask where you've been or what you're up to, you'll know it wasn't just one-sided. She felt your absence, and that absence triggered something real. That's when connection becomes mutual. That's when effort begins to flow both ways, not just from you but from her too. You see, silence is not just a void, it's a filter. It separates who's really there for you from who was just enjoying the convenience of your presence. And whatever the outcome, it brings peace. You either confirm that she respects and values you, or you gain the clarity to move on without regret. No more wondering, no more waiting. Just truth. And in a world full of mixed signals and half-hearted effort, that truth is a gift. There's a calm that comes when you stop needing someone to choose you. When you finally release the weight of constantly trying to be enough for someone else, something powerful happens. You start to breathe again. All the second-guessing, the late-night overthinking, the silent battles in your head about what she meant or why she didn't respond, it begins to fade. You're no longer trapped in the cycle of chasing validation. You're no longer waiting for her approval to feel confident in who you are. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing. You let go of that gripping fear of loss, that desperation to prove your worth, that quiet anxiety that whispers, "If I don't try harder, she'll leave." Because when you detach, you realize something deeper. If someone walks away when you stop overextending, they were never really there for you in the first place. This kind of emotional independence is rare and it's magnetic. People can sense when you're at peace with yourself. You no longer need constant reassurance. You're not afraid to be alone. You've built something within you that doesn't shake just because someone else doesn't stay. That inner stillness, that quiet self-respect draws people in, not because you're trying to impress them but because you're no longer trying at all. Ironically, this is when others often return. They sense the shift. The energy changes. But the beautiful part is, by then you're no longer waiting for them. You've found something far more valuable than their attention. You've found your own peace. And that peace can't be bought, faked, or borrowed. It only comes when you choose yourself without apology. In the end, detachment isn't the end of a connection. It's the beginning of true freedom.